Next, we're going to deploy our StreamNative BYOC Ursa cluster with our Open Catalog integration using the custom bucket that we created in the previous video. As you remember, we already gave StreamNative permissions into that bucket using Terraform, and I already have a cloud environment created which has deployed resources like an EKS cluster into my AWS cloud provider account. Now it's time to deploy the actual cluster. Here in the StreamNative UI, I'm going to click on the plus icon here to deploy the instance and cluster, and I'll say deploy BYOC. I'm going to say open I1 and select the Ursa engine. Here the connection is the connection to my cloud provider. And then here I'm going to say open C1 for the cluster. And this is the ID that is going to be used for this cluster as well. The cloud environment has already been deployed. That is the resources in my BYOC and cloud provider that StreamNative has deployed, which will be used to actually run this cluster. And here we are in the Lakehouse storage configuration. I've already filled all of it out. I'm going to be using my own bucket here. Remember, we've already provided StreamNative permissions into that bucket. So now we're going to tell StreamNative where that bucket is. Here's the AWS role ARN that was created for that first role that we got created when we used Terraform. So that's the StreamNative Open Catalog Access role. We're in US West 2, and the bucket name here is StreamNative Open Catalog. Notice there's no S://, and the bucket name here is just test, or the folder name. We check this box here to confirm that we did run the Terraform module to give the permissions. I've enabled catalog integration since we don't just want to use Delta Lake or Iceberg format, but we actually want to integrate with. And then the warehouse is that name of that catalog. Here it's StreamNative. And the URI, this first part is the URI that was provided when we created the catalog. A pop-up came up that had the, let me check what the exact thing, it was the account URL. And this is the account URL, but you have to add in the Polaris API catalog here at the end of it. And then the credential here was when we created the principal role, where that included the client ID and the key together, separated by a colon. We create that credential and store that as a secret here in StreamNative. If I go ahead and click deploy, it's going to do a pre-flight. It's going to check that StreamNative has access to the S3 bucket, as well as this URI and connection are working. Ours passed, so we go ahead and click continue. And then here in our cluster sizing, we're going to keep ours, all the defaults, and keep the minimum cluster sizing. This can always be changed later, and we'll start the deployment process. This process will take about 10 minutes. Once it's done, we'll go ahead and test this out using some Kafka messages, and then we'll hop on over into the Open Catalog and confirm that we're able to see the data or the tables showing up. Once the cluster deployment is complete, we'll see next to our instance, Open I1, the green here, the green circle. We go ahead and click on it. If you go to configuration, you'll be able to see the configuration of the Lakehouse storage down here. And then on the cluster level, so I'll go ahead and click on the cluster again here under overview. We're going to go ahead and test this out using some Kafka messages. I'm going to copy the Kafka service URL and the Kafka schema registry URL and test out this server. Here in client.properties.schema, I'm going to be publishing to a topic called Kafka schema topic, and it will go to the public tenant and the default namespace inside of StreamNative. I've updated the Bootstrap server as well as the schema registry URL for our new cluster. And then I've also updated my audience, of course, to point to that new instance. This is going to take just a minute or two before the compaction process starts. In the meantime, let's hop on over to the StreamNative UI again to take a look at this topic. So here in StreamNative UI, if I navigate to the public tenant, I can either do that here on the top or on the left, go to tenants and click on public. The default namespace I can navigate to here at the top or go to namespaces default. If I go to topics, we'll be able to see that this topic got created. Next, let's go to S3 and look at where the data is stored. For this cluster, we used a custom bucket, and that was the StreamNative Open Catalog bucket, and I had created a test folder inside of there. Immediately when you create your server, the storage folder should show up. And then when you start publishing to your first tenant namespace and topic, within about a minute or two, depending on how quickly you're writing, the compaction folder will show up. And this is where the data has been formatted into Parquet files. If I go to public default Kafka schema topic, that's the topic we had just created and started writing to, you'll see the metadata in the partition folder. If I go into partition folder, I now have the Parquet files. This is the folder, actually the compaction folder, is the folder that the Snowflake Open Catalog is pointing to. So now that public default and Kafka schema topic are here, we can head on over to the catalog and see if we can view this topic in the Open Catalog. So here back in Snowflake Open Catalog, public is now showing up under StreamNative as well as default, and then here's our Kafka schema topic with the corresponding schema of item and cost. In the next video, we're going to go over how we can then view this data inside of Snowflake by creating an external table.